everybody, welcome to the Mom series, The Misunderstanding of Multiplicity. The Misunderstanding of Multiplicity. And this is my video for DID, Dissociative Identity Disorder Awareness. DID Awareness Day was March 2nd. I said I would make a video, so here's my video. I don't believe in multiple personality disorder. I especially don't believe in dissociative identity disorder, and yet I was diagnosed with multiple personality disorder in 1986, and the entire framework of my life was shattered at that diagnosis. I then had to believe things that just weren't true, that I had many other alters in my brain that I had created from 0 to 3 and 0 to 6 and 0 to 9. And then anytime I was faced with traumas that they were created for, I continued to create more. Okay. Now I say this, I don't believe in it because when it's the real deal, you really don't believe in it. You really do stay in denial of it. You aren't running around saying, meet all my alters. Let's see if we can catch them switching on camera. This is what this alter looks with this alter. Now, I confess, when I first came out here to do awareness in 2009, face to monitor, after 2007-8, when I was doing representation videos, trying to give a picture in images of what I thought they were like from what people described me as in ego states, in different ego states, that I thought, okay, if I'm feeling this way, my energy is this way, then I must be Tony with an I, or I must be Joanna, or me Maria, or Celie, or whatever their names were. Okay. What I can tell you for DID awareness is the worst thing you can do is start naming aspects and ego states of yourself. The reason the name change occurred from multiple personality, I've said this in other videos, the only thing that changes is the name. This experience, the name keeps changing, and when it is considered legitimate in the DSM as a disorder and when it's just clearly not believed, it's an experience. It is a coping mechanism that's gone asunder, okay? It's gone off on its own. It becomes a disorder when we are given permission to allow it to exist. All right, so I know that sounds kind of harsh, but there are therapists that believe in dissociative identity disorder, and then there are therapists that have been therapists for 30, 40, 50 years and have never met a client who has had other aspects, alters, or personas, and they've had a shitload, pardon my language, of trauma in their background, and they've never developed others. So when I was diagnosed this, I really questioned my therapist. My therapist really questioned himself. But I had clear evidence. I had lapses in time. I had times I knew from second grade, I spaced out, I disassociated. Let me first tell you what disassociation is in the most simplest of terms. If you or I were in a car crash right now, upon impact, we might not remember the twisting metal. You might remember the sound of it, but we might not remember what we felt the minute we hit the other car, or the other car hit us, or we went over the embankment, or fire burst out, or maybe if we were stabbed, maybe we remembered the person coming towards us, maybe we remembered seeing the knife, but we didn't remember the actual stabbing going into our flesh, what that felt like, because we had to live. Maybe we were slapped, hit, punched, and we have a big old bruise, but we didn't feel any pain because the adrenaline takes over and we go into the fight, flight, fright, freeze, fawn. I always call it the fright, fight, freeze, fawn state where we flee, and we flee our minds. You go somewhere else. So when the actual pain, that childbirth, natural childbirth, when you're at that last push, right? You don't remember when that baby is tearing your skin and you're having to have an episiotomy later to sew you up. You don't remember that part. If we remembered that part, we would never get pregnant again. And that's the truth. So we're overcome by there's a newborn baby here. Okay, so when you're in the middle of fleeing, you're fleeing the pain. You're fleeing the disaster. You're fleeing the shame, pain, fear, whatever it is, the threat. You're fearing it. That is a primal thing in us that, yeah, we will see on brain scans, things lighting up, the amygdala and this and that. Doesn't mean it proves disassociating. That is disassociating. Does that mean there's time loss always when we get away from a threat? No. There's traumas and pain and threats that we move away from every day, and we remember full well how we got away from it. But then there's things that are too hard for our brain to fathom and our souls that are crushing, that we can't even fathom. And we go elsewhere in our head. We escape. And we go to our sacred place, what I call the core essence of our sacred space that makes us unique. That makes me, me, and you, you. We go there. And we are the closest right then to God. We are with God. And I believe, personally, science will tell you the brain's doing this. We're going into the recesses of our mind. We're going through tunnels in our brain and escaping. We're compartmentalizing like a pie. We're doing all these things, configurating like a computer, right? And that's what the brain's doing. And it is. But if you believe in the spiritual, you will explain it. I can only say if you've ever experienced the Holy Spirit around you, then that is kind of the cocoon you're in when you're in your safe space, away from the danger. Everything gets more muffled. Everything seems far away. You can see what's happening around you, but you're not a part of it. That's part of depersonalization and derealization, all part of a panic attack, all part of still being able to flee, fight, freeze, or fall over and play dead fawn, right? That is disassociating, and it happens on a continuum, on a spectrum. So there's people disassociate all day. When it becomes a disorder is when, let's say, you're shopping and I have this much money to spend, and you get really into shopping. You're just like pulling stuff off the rack, taking stuff out of the bin. "Ooh, that's mine, into the cart, into the cart." And now you're home with a ton of stuff that you really don't remember the experience of buying that. You're like, did I buy that? I know I looked at it. Ooh, that kind of stuff was happening to me. How about sitting down to eat? Got a bag of chips. I'm just going to eat a little bit of this chips. The bag's gone. Gone. How about, oh my God, it's 5 o'clock. I haven't eaten yet. 2 days in a row. Okay, so we can get, or I started exercising at midnight and it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm still, oh, I didn't realize the time went that fast. It is a distortion of time when you're disassociating. It's not that you're losing time and having complete amnesia, but when you go to recall it, it will be like amnesia. And that's what therapists will call it. But it's really lapses in time and time moving too fast forward or too slow. It can slow down. So what I like to think of is if you have the chance, go get the book Girl Interrupted by Suzanne Kazin. Now, you might remember the movie where it kind of chronicalizes Suzanne's stay in McLean's hospital, where she met other girls that stayed there for over a 2-year period of time, right? And in that book, though, the true story, in Suzanne's medical records, what they're looking for is dissociative disorders. And they mention that she has features of dissociative identity. So way back then in the 60s, they knew about this thing called dissociative identity disorder. They just attributed it mostly to borderline personality. So she had dissociative features. And they gave examples of when she said time was moving slow and fast. She couldn't make time slow down, stand still when she was talking to the therapist. And when she woke up in the hospital and she had done something to her arm and she was like, the bone wasn't, so she felt real. The bones in her arms didn't feel real. Okay, so she was banging at her arm to try to get her bone to feel her arm. Okay, so she had self-harm, derealization. She didn't feel real. And time was moving all over the place. What they fail to mention in that is that she was under alcohol and pills at the time. Okay, so eventually they said, no, it's not dissociative, whatever, because she was under the influence of alcohol and pills. So, one of the criteria for DID is that it's diagnosed in the absence of all substances. And what we see today is that's not really happening. People are diagnosing it while people are coming off of Adderall, Ritalin, Ambien, Xanax, Ativan, Risperdal. People have been on a shitload of medications, antidepressants, and they're being diagnosed DID. They're probably not. When a person goes into substance usage, dependency, recovery, we usually used to tell them, don't get into any major relationship or make any major decisions for the next 2 years. And the reason we told them that is because it's going to take that long for their brain to get readjusted and for their dopamine levels to readjust and their serotonin levels and everything to get online again in their brain because they're medically compensated. They have medically compensated. Their brain has compensated for alcohol usage or substance usage, right? Okay. When you go through traumas and you're adjusting your brain to be ready to fight or flee or freeze or fall out and pretend you're dead, go numb. If you stay in that mode for a long time, you have to actually wait for your brain to kind of unlearn that and untrain yourself to be on high alert. So really, it takes about 2 years. Check about scientifically, if we're going to look at science, about 2 years, 14 months to 16 months at the very most, empirically, they say, to get back online and brainwise. But there's a lot of money to be made in therapy, in therapism, in therapizing, in pathologizing everything, and making a disorder of everything. And if we're not careful, we can go down tons of rabbit holes filled with poo, looking at pictures of ourselves from when we were 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And we can have an alter aspect ego for each one of those years and a trauma that alter ego aspect is holding on to that we're not aware of. So we're told in therapy. That's not true. That's not true. Okay, so the most aware thing I can tell you is if you want to be brave, if you want to be true, admit that you're afraid, you're ashamed, you feel guilty, you feel scared, you feel threatened, your confidence is low. Admit that you're shy, painfully shy. Admit that you know you just did something really stupid. Don't blame it on an alter. Don't go find a trauma that you have to attach it to for your behavior. Okay? So this isn't a long-term thing that we've been told it is. We have been trained to believe that we are that we exist in other worlds, that we came from different, I don't know, biological parents, that we have different histories, that we have been trained to believe this. And if you start hanging around with support groups and subcultures on the internet that are groups for this, you will adjust your reality to fit in that culture, and your whole world will be changed. There are people out there that believe in past lives, and maybe they never did before, but now they believe, I got a memory of something, but I can't attach it to a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, a cousin, an uncle, an aunt, or whatever. Could be trauma from a past life. That is how far your therapist will take it. I am not anti-therapy. I am anti-bullshit. Okay? So if that's your spiritual belief, well, then go chase your trauma all the way to another planet, to another universe. But if you are destroying lives now by making accusations that just don't fit, but you have really no memory of, but you went to therapy and you got a feeling of, no. Okay, so when you disassociate, you flee the feelings. When you're healing, you reconnect to the feelings and the entire memory. Can you get the memory wrong? Yes. Can you get facts of the memory wrong? Yes. You can be suggested to have a clearer memory, to have it fit. There can be suggestions and leads that are very subtle in therapy that you will grasp at to be healed. That's what I'm going to tell you the truth of MPD DID is, of therapy is. All right. Second myth of therapy when you're going through trauma abuse therapy is you'll probably be told that if you were abused by your mother was probably abused by her father, and so it went all the way back to Adam and Eve. If you're a parent, you will be concerned that if you were abused, you might abuse your child. People around you will say, well, someone abused them. Of course they abused them. The truth is, there are people that abuse people that were never abused. There are people that had beautiful lives, that were given everything, that were the center of attention, that were the only attention given, and they grew up to be nasty-ass abusers. They were never abused. In fact, people rearranged their world to make sure they were okay. There are just people in the world that abuse. That is the truth. Okay, so trying to chase these generational things down the line is just adding more heartache, more pain, more condemnation, more judgment, more shame. Don't do that. Don't get into that game. It makes more money. Pathology makes money. The wellness community makes money, and having a pathological disorder makes money. What I can tell you about MPD DID is it destroyed my life, my children's life, and some of my family's life. What I can tell you about coming clean about someone that abused you when you were younger is if you were abused, somebody knew it. Somebody freaking knew it and needs to speak up. If they're not speaking up, it didn't happen. Well, I can't say it didn't happen. What I'd say is chances are eventually someone will speak up. Now, do abusers ever admit that they abused you? Hell no. Hell no. They blame other people. They say, well, I was abused. Well, that happened because I was abused. Or that happened because this one did this or that one did that. If you're waiting for an apology from your abuser, you'll be waiting till hell freezes over. Maybe one day they might admit to doing something wrong, but they won't actually say the words. That's what I can tell you for awareness. Don't wait for the apology. It's not coming. Don't wait for the admission. It's not coming. We're born into this world to defend ourselves and to protect ourselves. If you think you have alters, other people with you that are protecting you, that are defending you, that are gatekeepers, they're little children, they're innocent. It's all you. Every aspect, alter ego of you had a purpose when you were younger, when you were fleeing fright, in that continual trauma from 0 to 3, from 0 to 6, from 0 to 9. Every therapist, every child developmental person says 0 to 3, 0 to 6, 0 to 9. It's changed over the years. But what we know is whatever happened back then, when your personality was forming, if you didn't have enough supports around you and good people to hold you solid, and enough safe days in between your scary days, trauma days, if you didn't have enough safety from your trauma, I guess the best way I could think of this is if you were going for EMDR and the therapist was saying, okay, let's think about that trauma over there, and when he was doing that or she was doing this or this was happening to you. Okay, oh, okay, let's go over here and let's replace it with a good memory, right? Okay, so if you didn't have enough good memories to counteract that bad memory, you're going to stay in the bad zone in the future. You're going to have to start creating some good memories in the now. If all you're doing now is trying to heal the past, go back and revisit it to heal it, you're still staying in the bad zone. You aren't giving yourself any good time. Okay, so what I would tell people is don't get so caught up in the history of your alters, how they came to be, how you spell their name, how you pronounce their name, what their purpose is, what their inner world is like, what they do when they're out, and showing them to everyone. Just be you. If you just be you, believe me, subtly those things will come forward that are in your alter aspect, egos that make up you. So there is no infamous integration, merging, music, fusion, combo thing that happens. There is no concrete amnesic wall. There is distortion of time and a denial of admission of behavior and feelings. We ran from the feelings. We ran from the fear. We ran from the behavior, that what we wanted to do. Maybe we wanted to kick, scream, yell, swear, curse. And we have an alter that does that now. When we can accept that we want to beat someone to death, that we want to swear like worse than, I don't know, a sailor, I guess, that we want to be angry, that we want to stay mad at that person, that we're not going to forgive that person, that we don't want that person in our life, that we're not going to trust that person, that we're always going to be on guard around that person. When we admit that, then we don't need the alter to jump up and say, I'm not coming around you. I don't want to be around you. But you don't need to be different. Just be you. Just be you. Don't let it consume you. Don't let the name MPD, what it used to be, or DID, become all encompassing. I find it funny that people, kind of odd and funny too, that people don't run around saying, oh, I'm a hysteric. And let me tell you all about it. Let me introduce you to all my make-believe people that are in my head that do stuff for me because I had trauma. Okay, so you see, as the names change, people don't run around saying, hey, I'm a demon. I want you to know, I'm a demon. I'm possessed. Some people do. But you don't find a whole group of people out here saying, welcome to the demon community. Welcome to the hysteric community. Welcome to the somatoform illness community. You don't find those people, do you? No. They gave it a fancy little name. Welcome to the multiple personality community. Welcome to the plural community. Welcome to the plural positivity community. Welcome to the more than one community. Welcome to the DID community. It just sounds better. doesn't it? It's all you. It's all me. And it's a conglomeration of experiences that we grew up with, that we've had in our life, good, bad, and indifferent. And that's all it is. So let's not make it more than it is. That's what I would say for DID awareness, is stop making it more than it is. Stop. Stop yourself. Untrain yourself. You've been trained, and I've been trained to believe we need our alter aspects to be whole, right? To be one person, that we are shattered. We're in all different pieces, and we need to all come together to be whole. You exist fine, I exist fine just the way we are. And we work every day with all those aspects of ourselves. And everyone else does too. They're just not aware of it. They didn't have a doctor come along and say, you know, I think that's an aspect of you that you might not be aware of from when you were maybe 3 years old because you were ashamed because your daddy made fun of you or your aunt made fun of you. Or I think that might be an aspect of from when the bullies in school were telling you you couldn't, or you got embarrassed standing in front of the class, or you couldn't read. You were called on to read, but you couldn't read. Or maybe you were called to the chalkboard to do math in front of everybody and you were completely like, huh? What is this? Like you were seeing numbers for the first time. It, nobody tells you that. Instead, they're going to tell you you had a trauma. You had a trauma. And that alter took that trauma. And you need to find out what that alter exists for. And now you need to get that thing that they do and learn it. Not true. It's not true. You've been fed horse manure. Don't romance it. Don't curl up with it. Don't fall in love with your past trauma, your recovery, your triggers. Don't romance it. It doesn't give back to you. It only takes. Move on. Remember that sacred space you went to? Get in touch with that. Go back to the core essence of you and remind yourself you're still you. You're still you. And you are not only a survivor, you're a thriver. So start acting like it. Stop playing show and tell, parading your alter aspect egos, changing your hair color, putting your makeup on different, wearing different clothes, talking a little different. Don't do it. Nobody's that fascinated with you. You are. And it's actually a detriment to your life. You're being told it's fascinating. It's not. Really not. If I were talking to a younger self, a 20-something self that was being diagnosed, DID, I would say, so what? So what? Sit down with your therapist, talk about the trauma, and never mind all the other happy baloney in between. And don't get stuck in the trauma. If that person, that thing, whatever traumatized you was a danger to you then, it probably isn't now. Maybe you had a parent that drank too much and they weren't well and they did nasty stuff to you and they traumatized you. Maybe they're not a drunk now. Maybe they're a healthy human being now. And maybe they actually acknowledge, I made a lot of mistakes. I did things wrong. Okay, maybe they won't ever say the words of what they actually did, but they'll get darn close to it and they'll blame someone else. That's as good as it gets. As good as it gets. Because we're born with these natural defenses. And then you have people that will go overboard. They'll be sorry about everything. Oh, I'm sorry about everything. They're really not admitting to what they're sorry for because they're sorry about everything. So what I would say is don't wait for the apology. It's not coming. Don't get to your 60s, 70s and still be waiting. Just move on and do better in your life. Okay? Have a nice day, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.